Okay, so today we're going to talk about miter joint with a biscuit. Okay, I'm going to show you how to put together a little box made out of plywood. The corners are going to be miter jointed. So what we're going to do, we're going to come over here to the miter saw and we're going to miter the ends at a 45-degree angle. So I'm going to loosen this wheel on the back and I can tilt the saw to a 45-degree to the stop, which is set accurately, and I tighten that up. I don't want to make that cut without tightening that up. Once that's done, you know, everything you normally do on the miter saw takes precedent. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and mark the length I want for the side of this box. Okay. You do need to be aware that the angle of the blade has changed, and so your blade path has changed. So you need to reposition your hands so they are still, you know, out of danger. Okay, so what I'm going to do, all right, so what we've got here, so you can see that, is we've got a 45-degree cut on both ends. Okay, so now we're going to go talk about plywood a little bit here. All right. So there's some rules that we need to follow when we're making things out of plywood. The reason we use plywood, okay, is because it's such a stable product. So this is a piece of birch plywood, 3/4 inch birch plywood, okay, and you can see it has this nice birch veneer on the outside, on both sides. One side is usually one grade better than the other, okay? And then your inner cores, you can see, and it's usually an odd number. You see all these inner cores of wood here, okay? These are all inferior quality woods, not nice enough to make anything else out of, so we use them for core substrates in the middle of our plywood. Okay, so imagine these are all the grain direction on all these layers in here are adjacent to each other. And so one layer has the grain going this direction, the next layer in the plywood has the grain going this direction, and then this direction, and then this direction. All right. And then they use a really strong, a lot of times like a waterproof glue, like Resorcinol. These things are pressed flat, a lot of heat, and the result is a very straight, very stable product. Like there's no flaw anywhere in this piece of plywood. It's perfectly flat. And the nice thing about all these layers that are sandwiched together is that it will remain flat. It's a very stable product. These thin layers of wood they fight against each other and kind of stay in place instead of just having a piece cut out of a tree that maybe wants to follow some of the characteristics of that tree when it was alive and take on a twisted shape. So using plywood definitely has its advantages. A lot of times it can be cost effective to use plywood over real wood. Most of your cabinetry is plywood, and then you'll have real wood faces, real wood drawer faces, real wood face frames, real wood cabinet doors, but everything else is stable hardwood plywood. Okay, and we can get this in any species we want. Some of it can get a little costly, but we can get this in any species we want. Now, one thing to note here, all right, and try to get you a close-up. This is really difficult to see, but that outside hardwood birch veneer is very thin, like maybe 1/20th of an inch thick, I believe. And so if you dent this somewhere, then there's a good chance if you try to sand that dent out that you're gonna sand through the veneer to try to get that dent out. So once we're cutting pieces out of plywood, we gotta be really careful. We don't throw things on it. We don't drag things across it. We need to treat these faces with a lot of care. And this is already a very smooth surface that really just needs, you know, a quick shot of 220 grit and it's done. That's the other nice thing about plywood. If a lot of these panels that we make out of real wood, there's a lot of work to be done there. They have to be, you know, planed, glued together, planed, jointed, you know, maybe panel sanded. There's a lot of work to making a nice straight panel out of actual lumber. Okay, so a couple things here working with veneer, things that don't work. Putting a screw, you know, directly into these plies, that does not work very well at all. That is not a high gripping strength scenario. Okay, I can put a screw down through here, through the veneers this way, and it'll hold, but I can't do it this way. Okay. Also, this is, if I wanted to say I was gluing, I can glue plywood face to face. That's a very strong glue joint if I clamp it properly and I get enough glue on it, because I've got these very non-porous, sanded, smooth faces. It's a very dense surface. When I glue, what we're doing, okay, you know, we're putting this corner together to make a miter joint, and we've got these very porous surfaces, right? Those are going to soak in glue and not be a very strong joint. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a biscuit joint in conjunction with that. Now the advantage to using a miter joint on plywood is it hides all that ugly inner core, and all you see is the outside finished veneer. So what we're going to do here, we're going to set up and we're going to mark this for biscuits. And so what I want here, typically situation like this, you know, I might have 2 to 3 biscuits in this corner. If you anticipate cutting through the panel anywhere, you don't want to be cutting through the middle of a biscuit, so you need to anticipate that. Okay? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to come in, let's come in 2 1/4 inches from this edge, okay? And 2 1/4 inches from this edge. Okay? They're evenly spaced. Now what I can do, you can see that, those marks, okay? Now what I can do, I can use those marks to transfer marks to the other sides of the box, okay? And so on, okay? You can see we've got matching marks there, okay? That's gonna guide our biscuit joiner. Now, I'm gonna put this piece in the vise, get the camera closer. Okay. So we've got the biscuit joiner here. Hard to see, but we have set it to the 10 setting. We're going to use a size 10 biscuit, okay? You can see the red mark that indicates the center of the biscuit. I'm going to put that on that center mark. Okay? And if you look here, that's nice and tight against the miter. That's what we want. Okay? I'm going to hold here. As I start this, the biscuit joiner is going to want to have a tendency to pull this way because of the direction of the spin of the blade. So I'm going to hold it in place here. I'm looking here to make sure I stay tight against the miter. Never start it in contact with the wood. Okay, I'm going to start the trick. I'm going to start the machine and then push it all the way in, let it all the way out, let off the trigger. Okay, we'll do our other one. Now, we're going to do our corresponding panel, same way. You would do this to all sides of the box. Okay? Okay. Now, so we've got this miter joint we're going to glue together. When you glue this, okay, I'll show you. Okay, so what I'm going to do, you're going to wipe up some glue when you're done. You know, it's going to make a little bit of mess. That's all right. More glue is better than less. Okay, I'm taking a bead of glue right down this joint, letting it soak right down in those biscuit slots. Okay, that's plenty of glue. Okay, this stuff isn't going to kill you either. I use Type Bond 2 yellow wood glue for everything because it's really strong and it's waterproof, and I can get it locally for a reasonable price. Come on. And of course, this is my $1 ketchup bottle from Dollar General, which makes a pretty good glue bottle. Okay. So I've got 100% coverage on those surfaces. All right. The biscuit gives you two advantages. Number one, it lines these up perfectly. You know, there's no guesswork whether you're lining this corner up perfectly or not. It lines it up perfectly. It keeps it in place while you're clamping. All right. Because these miter joints can be tricky when you're trying to clamp it. Because without these biscuit joints in it, it's going to slide around a lot. Okay. And the other thing is it increases our wood-to-wood contact. You saw me make that slot on both pieces that correspond with each other. And then we put glue in that slot, and then we put the actual mechanical fastener, the biscuit, down in that. And that acts like a spline between the two surfaces. It increases our wood-to-wood contact. Okay, it increases our gluable area in that joint. Okay, so what we would do, and you need to work once you stick things together, you need to work quickly. I wouldn't want to just assemble, you know, like one corner of this box and stop. If I was making a box, I would make sure I had all my pieces mitered, biscuit jointed, and I would have plans as well to either square the box as it dries or to go ahead and put a bottom or a lid on during that scenario. because either one will hold the box square. You want to hold it square. If you glue something out that's not in square and you go to put a square lid on it, then you have trouble, okay? Most commonly, so you can use any of the clamps we have here in the wood shop, but you're going to have clamps going, you know, this way. You're going to have clamps going this way. The other thing we can use, I don't have it with me today, is a band clamp, okay? It's kind of like a ratchet strap, but there's no hooks on it. It's just a continuous loop. I have bands, nylon webbing bands that can go around the entire box, and then we would tighten it. Okay, those are the most effective because they're going to line up these outside corners perfectly. You know, if I put a bar clamp going this way, then it's going to push this, it's going to try to push this piece in right here. Put it this way, it's going to try to pull this piece in. Same thing. Those biscuits help us keep everything in place, but a band clamp is going to help keep everything in position. Now, you can see I got some glue going on here. I want to get that wiped up as soon as possible. And this is we constantly struggle with this, okay? We've got a lot of glue in there, okay? Like I said, that's a good sign. When I start to put a clamp on this, you're going to see it squeeze out the entire joint. So you want to get all your clamping done and then go in here with a wet rag. Even a little bit of soap doesn't hurt. And then I want to use like a sharp tool, like a flat screwdriver works real well. And I need to scrub. I don't want to take that yellow glue and just smear a film of it on the board, okay? Because all we're doing is just smearing it. What we need to do is actually scrub the glue out so there is none remaining. You have to scrub that glue off the surface. You need a glue-free surface. If there's glue on the surface, it won't take stain and it'll be really obvious, really ugly, okay? Yes, it can be painted over. It's pretty tough. Glue's pretty tough to sand out. Take care of glue when it's wet, okay? So what you want to do is get a wet rag. We have keep lots of shop rags around here, okay? And you are going to scrub that glue away, okay? So that there's none remaining. And then you can go wash the rag out, hang it up, okay? Once you put glue on things, start putting them together, you need to work quickly. If I was to put glue on this surface, as long as I don't touch it to anything else, it'll sit in the open air like that for a while and it's fine. But as soon as I do this and I put it under clamp pressure, that gets really hard to pull apart in just a few minutes, okay? So, I mean, that's already starting to, you know, can't move it very well. I can pull that apart yet, but I would have to re-glue it at this point, okay? You don't want a joint to sit here like this for as long as I've been talking without a clamp on it. It's going to start to set where it's at, and although it looks pretty good, there's little gaps here that I would want to pull out with more clamp pressure. You can see that. You can see me squeezing glue out. As soon as you put pieces together, you need to be putting clamps on it so that you get it to dry the way you want it, okay? If I was to let it dry like this, this is not a strong joint because we didn't put clamp pressure on it. All right, so once you put glue on things, start putting them together, you have to work very quickly. All right, so any day that you are gluing things together, have all your work planned out, have all your pieces out, all the tools you need, including clamps. You know, make sure your glue bottle it has plenty of glue in it. It's not plugged or something. Get all your pieces in the right place. Not only that, but like have a wet rag on hand, but not only that, I always recommend that students dry fit a project together without glue to make sure it goes together, right? I would have put those biscuits in the slots, put these two sides of the box together, pull it together and make sure everything is coming together tight. You don't want to find out you made a mistake when you have wet glue all over everything. It's happened, and it's happened several times in here, and it's always just a kind of a panic situation, just a disaster, okay? So, always plan your work when you're gluing up miter, or gluing up any work, okay?